Mr Chairman.
I'm going to call Ron Mark.
I want to start by thanking the Minister in the seat and in the chair at the moment for the explanation to my questions on the issue of reducing the size of the quorum from 3 to 2. And I was writing frantically, Minister, trying to get it all down, but from what was explained to the House, the government is saying that this does not relate to, it relates to site-specific areas, discretion of the chair, hearing of evidence only, not for decision-making, not for a decision-making process, only the hearing of evidence. Now, I've got that, and I think I understand what was said. My difficulty, Mr Chairman, is that I've got the primary legislation open on my laptop and I'm going through it clause by clause and trying to marry up what I've just heard with what I'm reading in this legislation. So I'm going to have to, unfortunately, ask the Minister to explain again for me. Now, you know, I'm not a lawyer, never went to university, actually started my trade as a mechanic in the army and worked my way through to end up commanding troops, but it seems to me that something's not matching in here. So I'm really going to defer back to the lawyers in the House at the moment. I'm looking at Mr Grant Robertson now. I'm hoping that he will get a call to validate or maybe argue against what I'm trying to propose right now. But I have looked, Mr Chairman, at hearing procedure, clause 136. If I go to clause 136, now, you know, I would assume that under clause 136, the entire procedure, authorised procedure for this hearings panel would be laid out clearly there. It makes no mention in there of the hearings panel being restricted to site-specific considerations only. It makes no mention of it only hearing evidence. And in fact, it talks about each session hearing no fewer than 3 members, or it's going down to 2, must be present. The chairperson is not present. He or she must appoint. That's going to be interesting because, as I said before, if there were a quorum of 3 and the chair wasn't there, then 3 would decide who was going to chair. If we're at a quorum of 2 and the chair's not there, we're probably going to spend half our meeting arguing who's going to be the chair. It just seems a whole lot easier if you leave the quorum at 3 and then we can get a clear majority, appoint a chair and move on. That's the first point. But going through the hearing procedure, there is nothing of what the Minister's explained to us, and I absolutely accept that the Minister will have taken advice from officials. So what I'd like now, Mr Chairman, through you, is for us to get advice as to where that advice we've just received appears in the legislation or is cross-referenced in the legislation, because it appears to me that it does not. What is very clear to me, if I look at clause 164, the functions of the hearing panel, go to clause 164 in the primary legislation, right? What do I find? The functions of the hearing panel does not in any way, in that very short clause 164 A, B, 1, 2, 3, C, D and E, does not in any way restrict the hearing of a quorum of 2. Help me please, because I can't see it. The Minister for Local Government's here, she's having a quiet chat, so she might be able to take a call and help us understand this, but I can't find it, Mr Chairman. I find no reference to the explanation we've just received in the House within the legislation that empowers and enacts those thoughts into reality. So I'm asking for help, guidance, so that we, New Zealand First, can continue to support this legislation through and support the government in doing that. 144 is very specific. 144, and we'll just stay with the amended 144, not what I've got in front of me on my laptop, which is the primary legislation. 144, Mr Chairman, is very clear. The hearings panels must make recommendations to the Council on the proposed plan. Must make recommendations. Doesn't say unless it's only a quorum of 2 and therefore they can't. The hearings panel must make recommendations. This is 1441. Must make recommendations on the proposed plan, including any recommended changes to the proposed plan. Must make. Doesn't say unless there's only a quorum of 2. 1442. the hearings panel may make recommendations and may make recommendations. Not unless, doesn't say that it's not for decision-making purposes or recommendation-making purposes if there's only a quorum of 2. It doesn't say that. So I hate to be a pain. I am struggling and we want to support this legislation through. And this is a question that needs to be answered.
Grant Robertson.